none of us get out of this alive. So like there's a component of like, what do you want to evolve that seriousness into? And how do you want that to bring something out of you, knowing, well, I'm going to bring some humor. There's going to be joy, some madness, some love, some scaredness to it. Be like, you may as well have a good time.
Strap in for a roller coaster ride where curiosity, humor, laughter, and the odd taste of wisdom is applied to understanding the adventure of life.
Welcome to the Rawle Gene Show, the power of coaching, guided by two knuckleheads who invite you to sit in the front car with them on this ride.
Trust us, it's not as serious as it sounds.
And high fives are included.
Well, we got our high fives out of the way. Show's over.
All right,
See
take
you
care. Have a
everybody
good
later.
weekend, everyone. It's not as serious as you think.
It's way more
Why
serious.
so serious?
Well, today we have no theme. We're just
It's an
going to
open mic.
be Rawle Gene. It's open.
Sometimes they don't always show, but they do listen to the different things. Like I was telling you, you were wondering who Courtney was. Courtney was a student at Cato when I was there. I actually need to reach out to see how she's doing. It's good that voices from the past find you again and still value.
Well, that was, for those who may be listening for the first time, probably do this episode. Well, this episode won't show up on the podcast for quite some time, but this is episode 26 of the show. And somebody found, it's Courtney that came and was a connection of Rawls, went back and listened to episode 3. So we've got the catalog for people to start really chiming through. And that one, I believe, was about humor and how we integrate laughter, especially behind the scenes and even here where our humor is quite dark and delicious, but we use it quite a lot in our practices too, as a way to explore
Downright
things.
racist, man. Shit that we say. The shit that we say that we can get away with because nobody's looking. Of course, I'm kidding. No, I just don't have time. And I love the fact that I miss the days where we could say shit to each other and not be overly offended. I miss it. I miss it.
Well, that's what we bring for one another.
Well, look how much fun we have, even when we're talking about serious stuff, because we use humor. We want to have a positive influence on humanity, but at what cost? Because we want to change humanity, but we want to change humanity while we lose our humanity.
Yeah, I think there's a theme starting to pop up here. It's like, what's the edge of the humor and the seriousness, and how do you play with those two things? Even though in our intro we say don't take it too serious, we actually mean it. None of us get out of this alive. So like there's a component of like, what do you want to evolve that seriousness into, and how do you want that to bring something out of you, knowing, well, I'm going to bring some humor. There's going to be joy, some madness, some love, some scaredness to it. Be like, you may as well have a good time. Like I always thought about, when I crash land and end up wherever I'm going to end up, if I have hair left, hair is strewed, go, oh, it was a good ride. Can I go again?
Hey, speaking of when I die, you can have my dreads. I'll be you, my friend. Right? Well, this is even more because of the hell we want today. It's an interesting time. Kind of going back to what we were talking about in the green room before we came on live, with all the self-helps that's out there. Has humanity changed? Have we made things better? And then your pushback is, well, we're kinder and gentler to each other now than we ever have been. And that's very true. But there's just something feels different right now in the ethos. Is it something different, or is it just the fact that more and more people still do not want to accept the bad and ugly of life? Right? So our day-to-day business life, how many people put their ethics aside when money comes into play? So we like to act like we are capable of some of these harshness, and yet the harshness aren't always carried out by monsters. The monsters might lead the parade and get people worked up, but where's your line in the sand kind of thing? Right? I don't either. But if someone busts in my house and wanting to hurt me and my family, what do you think I'm going to do? Go, excuse me, before you kill me, would you like to have some tea so we can talk? So.
Well, it speaks to that component of us. We've talked on other shows. If we hear the tires screeching. Are we
Yeah.
going to stop and think about what's the best outcome? Or are we going to jump to action? Like we talked about that you had the story of the white wolf and the dark wolf, and how the real telling of that story is about feeding them as a pack and you being the leader of them and knowing when to use them and when not to. And in fact, if you starve one, it's when it gets out of control. Acknowledge that they're both there. They have strengths and they counterbalance one another's strengths and weaknesses. Keeping that in check allows you to make the best decisions and understand where your line is. Because when you're not taking care of yourself, you're not able to show up and do the best job. I was working with a client and I made the statement that, I hope every leader would hear is like, when you're running yourself to the bone, giving to everybody else and not taking care of yourself and asking the questions, when do I make time for self-care? You are not doing the best for anybody else, because you are constantly draining your own ability to do that away. If you're not taking care of yourself, you are not giving the best version of
At
it's
a
alive.
VP I worked for years ago, wanted people to get involved in the retention strategy and came up with a bunch of things. And he wanted his people to start taking vacations and not working such long hours. Are you going to do those things? They follow your lead. Most of them are here late at night because we're here till 11 o'clock sometimes at night. Then you come back and you do it all again by 8 o'clock the next morning. When do you sleep? When do you have a life? When do you go on vacation? They're trying to impress you because you're the boss, right? They want to excel and they want to climb the corporate ladder, and you're the gatekeeper to that. But if you don't lead by example, they're not going to follow. Right?
Using that example is a huge responsibility. I think we take it for granted a lot. This saying, what it's not taught, it's caught. And that applies definitely for our kids, but applies to like all the people that we keep around us. They're going to see how they can interact with us. They're going to see what your bar is, what you're going to put up with, not because you've spoken about it or taught them something. They've caught it through your actions and how you show up and what you're doing is like, what are you bringing that people are going to be able to observe?
Still the best form of leadership. Lead by example. There are many great forms of leadership. What's your leadership philosophy? I always tell people, I invite people to be selfish in balance. Because we're taught selfish is a negative word. And yet the first part of the root of the word is self. The human heart knows how to be selfish in balance. When it's pumping fresh blood, it takes what it needs, feeds itself first, but it doesn't take it all. It only takes what it needs and then it sends the rest out. We are taught send it all out and hope some comes back. That causes a lot. So it's about learning how to be balanced. It's just like a team, football. I used to always tell my boys, there's no I in team, but there's an M-E in team. It's not original. But I thought it was really good because there is no I. Because if you don't know who you are, what you're capable of, what are you truly contributing? You will contribute, but most people are not happy with what they contribute. And they still think it lies in the external, where you need to understand who you are and what do you want. Can you take what you want and put it in that team concept? Can you take what you want to go, I'm going to focus on something greater than me. But I know the better I am, the more I could contribute to the team. And the stronger the team is, I'm going to feed off of that. So it's going to work well for me. And more than likely, I will achieve my goals or even surpass them. And if I don't achieve my personal goal and the team achieves its goal, I win. Right? So this is why I find it interesting. We encourage young ones to play team sports or to get involved in acting because of the life skills they can learn. And then when we grow up as adults, we forget those life skills. Right? The issues we have is that we don't always follow through on the things that we know that we should. We don't implement the laws that we have, so we feel there's no justice. We're not impeccable with our own words and our own collective standard. Right? But if that's true for the collective, what does that say for you as the individual? Because you're feeding into the collective as well. You're not just taking from the collective, you're adding to. I am one drop in an ocean of drops. but I'm also one drop that contains a universe. There's that balance, the duality of the contrast of life. It's an open mic.
And you're just, I love it. And you're pulling in that piece that you wrote the other day too about the drops in the ocean.
We're an interesting species.
What that
We're an interesting,
is, there's no denying that we are an
we've
interesting
evolved to an
species.
interesting place. And this company is real. I agree with you. There's still a lot of good going. I look for the good. One of the things I do to keep myself sane is watching stories of human kindness and the potential about humanity and the things that we can do. When shit hits the fan, we'll drop whatever we do, especially when someone's life's in danger. We'll rush to help someone we don't even know. Maybe last week they were protesting and the following week shit happens. All that goes away. Look when the tsunami hit back in
Mhm.
So 2000 off the coast of India and Thailand and so forth. And just watching that and watching people, how they reacted, right? We see it here all the time when we have major floods, how people react. I'm hoping people could look at everyday life and go, we're still going through that right now. You know, the alien force was to come out of the skies and say, we're going to attack you and we're going to eradicate you. We would come together like
I would feel sorry for that alien force, because once the human race got their feet underneath of them and came together, they're creative and courageous
Yeah.
bunch.
And if we were to get wiped out, we'll go down fighting. That's the spirit of our humanity. We value life, but when things are good, we forget those things. I know a bit of history. But all I know is I'm watching humans denying other humans. Too many people are acting like they know the truth. And the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. All I see is humans denying other humans. It's always been that. I think it's always going to be that. A lot of people think that one day we'll get to a point where we have no bad and ugly on this planet. How can you know light within dark? So, this is why when I work with people now, I'm trying to, it's like when I talk about being brutally honest, not just being brutally honest with yourself in here, are you being brutally honest with how you see life? Check your worldview. Is your worldview based on what you want it to be? Or is it based on how it actually is?
It's okay to flip through your lenses. We've all got the rose-colored lenses. We've also got the dark lenses as well. Like, how often are we actually changing them and going, what else do I see? It's like, are you changing them frequently enough to see all the parts that each of those spectrums of shades that you're putting on over top of your eyes block something else out to let something else in? And are you changing it enough to see all those pieces that are available? It's going to depend on your biases and your perspectives and where you are in that moment to go, what's the whole picture? What questions am I going to ask if I just take one different lens view here? What's within me that I need to challenge? What's within me that I need to be right with the rest of what is happening in my environment?
My old mentor, Lawrence, who passed a few moons ago. Lawrence and I would always meet at the Bean Scene, the one that was across from the Paramount. And we would talk. I've always had this desire to work with humanity, change humanity. Lawrence used to always say, Rawle, you know what? You don't need to do anything. There's a lot of injustice in the world. I used to fight him on it. We debated and argued because I always respected him.
Yeah.
But we would have, really good conversations. And he'd always accept my pushback. Because what he's saying is people want to change things because they have not accepted that there's going to be harshness in life. They don't want to accept, they cannot accept that for some reason. Their worldview, however they look at rose-colored glasses, just cannot accept that. If something as bad is happening, someone is causing or suppressing, but yet no one has ever been able to stop it. Why? It's built into this world. Every day I have two experiences. A lot of my experiences happen during the day. A lot of my experiences happen during the night. Two different environments, but I'm still having those experiences. And that's been consistent in the 62 years I've been rotating, 63 now rotating this. And it's the same process for life. It's never all good. all mad,
Right.
all ugly, all beautiful. And even when we have moments where it feels like we're really in the harshness of this discomfort, but this too will pass. How do I know? History, your own personal life. Look at the things you've gone through. In the short time I've known you, look at the things you've gone through. And it all hasn't been good. And yet those harsh experiences that you went through, isn't that where your resiliency comes from? Or it adds more fuel to your resiliency. Right?
Yes. Like there's a yes in that, right? Like without having this go around of the things is much different because of choosing to, like, we've talked about before. You've been my coach in different periods of my life. And I've had other coaches, counselors, therapists, and all the things.
You
So
break
many
it to me
people.
on the air. Lovely.
Not that I don't love you, it's just I have to love all of them.
Great answer. Love to contain within. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
And there's an example of our humor.
Anyway,
I could have been to that place where there was paths. I could have stayed and was bitter, could have been using coping mechanisms like the bottle and other destructive things in my life. And I chose not to. And it doesn't mean that the choice isn't hard. The coping mechanisms, like drinking, that's easy. But it didn't add value. It wasn't taking me to where I wanted to go. Every time I reach for the easy bottle, it's actually taken me back a step. So what's the option? And being able to recognize the old triggers and giving myself the grace that they're there. We all get triggered about everything. The word trigger has become such like a weird word, but
people don't really understand it. So.
I just triggered Rawle, right? Because, me saying that word also, like how our emotions work is like thoughts, feelings, beliefs, our actions. That whole cycle gets started. It's triggered and it adds the motion, and it's not a bad thing. We all get triggered. And now I accept that and I don't let it be the thing more often than not that leads to my actions. I can stop it at any of those 3 points. What am I actually thinking? My feelings going, I'm very like somatic. I take it into my body going, where do I feel it? And does that serve me anymore? It's taken work and it continues to take work. But all 3 leverage points, when those experiences show up that allow you to start changing the dial. And I think that's where resilience comes in. It's easy just to stay on the same path. And that path served you at some point in your life, whatever triggers you, and that you have your thoughts, feelings, beliefs turns into your actions. At some point, that was a protective mechanism that served you in some shape or form, and it did its job. Right. Now the question comes up to, do I want it to do this job anymore? And is it taking away from where I need to be? So what do I need to resolve within it? Sometimes that requires some really deep work with professionals. This is not replacement for a psychologist, counselor, or professional coaches. This inspires you to reach out to those services. Do it. But if it's beyond that, coaching is really taking you from here to your next spot. And sometimes you got to unpack what got you here to understand it better, right? And all that stuff comes up, stepping into it and slowly, day by day, choosing to not do the easy thing, choosing to do the difficult thing, going, what does this thought mean to me? What do I want this thought to mean when this experience shows up? What do I need to do with this feeling in my body? My favorite is nervousness. It's like, it's nervousness and excitement are actually the same thing. It's just the story that we give to it. And like all these little tidbits come over time to build what we call resilience. Yeah. And this idea of resilience training it's kind of bullshit. Like if anyone's out, and I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to be a jerk to anybody that's a resilience coach along those lines.
For speaking truth. We do that way too long.
Well, but this isn't about shitting on somebody else's practice. But my belief of it is like, it's not like you're putting somebody in a real shitty situation going, great, now resilience your way out of it. It's all these little things that eventually add up. I got more capacity than I used to before my actions show
But you
up.
see, it's not shitting on anything. It's speaking truth. What was I asking you before? Because you keep bugging me, write a book, write a book. Self-help industry. Has it made life better? At the end of the day, I'll put on my corporate hat and I'm going to look at things and go, is life better? Based on how we view it, based on the metrics that we use to measure life. We're definitely kinder than we've been years ago. But right now in this madness, we've been doing this for a while. You said something quite interesting in your talk just now. There's times you feel like you're going two steps back. You're not going backwards. You're moving forward because you're moving one step closer to death. Every inhale and exhale is a step closer to death. So you're not moving backward. The path consists of experiences in the good, the bad, the ugly. Life is really that simple, yet complex, because it's complex because we all have a brain and we think differently. But yet we all have a brain and we think. How are we different? I've shared my stories with you. You shared yours with me. How are we different? We both had experience of anger and love and disappointment. We perceive it differently. Right? But there's no going backwards. You're on one path. And each inhale and exhale takes you closer to the unknown, death, where you'll return from where you came from. I'm not talking religious or theological thinking, just life. I don't know where I came from before. I can't prove it. I have my faith and my belief, but I can't prove it, nor am I going to try to. We've fought enough wars trying to prove whose religion is right or whose faith is right. I just have mine. I came from the unknown. So going back to the unknown doesn't scare me. Why doesn't it scare me? Because I did choose to do the internal work. Now, having said that, when death shows up, I have no idea how I will face that moment. I like to think I will face it honorably, but I have no idea until that moment shows up. And it will show up one day. Until then, too many people are worried about death and they forget about living. We are born to die. And if that's the case, stop acting like you have all the damn time in the world. Life is short. The universe operates in thousands of years and millions of years. Right?
Yeah. We are but a drop within a drop.
That. But within our puny human perspective, 80, 90 years is a good chunk of time. So it's not
It's a
time.
lifetime.
It's what you've done with that time. When people say, I wish I had more time or life is short, it's not time. It's, oh, you're saying, oh, you didn't use your time wisely. Right? So the question is, are you using your time wisely? Are you living it fully? Or are you waiting to die? You're so afraid to die that you're forgetting to live. Many people are trying. I can get all the exercise I want and eat all the healthy food I want and get all the sleep I want. You know what I end up doing? Leaving a really healthy corpse.
Now, we're not saying don't be
I'm
healthy.
saying for me, because if I choose not to do anything, I'm just going to leave a corpse. Who's going to know or care if you worked out and ran marathons? You're just going to leave a corpse. To me, when I hear someone has died, I give my condolences and I'll ask the next question, did they live well? From what you can tell, from your perspective, did they live well? This is why the people that do harshness in this world, they actually serve us well, because is that what you want to do? We learn from each other, not just the good and the beautiful. Vicarious learning is still one of the best ways we learn. Monkey see, monkey do. Lead by example. Right? So,
yeah,
I don't know. I could have lost my mind back on December 17, 2001. But until then, I'm going to keep doing this because it feels right to me to truly accept life the way it is in its richness of the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. Because, man, without the bad and the ugly, I'm not here. And all the work we've done together, have I ever invited you to use the bad and ugly of your experiences to beat yourself up? You feel shame
No,
and guilt
actually,
from it. Like,
you chase me off that more often than
yeah,
not.
it's where resiliency comes from.
It's
It's not from the good experiences, but from how strong you are if you didn't have shit to go through.
it's that I hear you saying that it's the resistance that allows you to grow. You're going to be able to push into it as much. You get to have the choice to be like, I'm going to learn to push this even further away or sink into it. If you learn, when I hear Rawle talking about that, it's an exercise. And it also allows some breathing to happen. And as you learn to manage those edges better, the goodness can fill it in and brighten it up. But it's always going to be there. You always have it with you. So choose to either be working with it or letting it
Yeah.
absorb you. Because then if it absorbs you, then you're pushing against the good.
Yeah.
So it's the choice of which one is going to be your lungs.
This is why I don't let outside influences dictate who I am. Doesn't matter what the experience is.
Is this why you're fighting me and writing a book? Now I get it.
Maybe. Like I said, Gene's been bugging me to write a book for a while. My son has been bugging me to write a book. Others have said the same thing. And I was, my pushback has always been, what book did Yeshua write? What book did Buddha write? But I also accept that could be my own worthiness issues, right? I have a hard time sitting down to write about me. And it's not that I have a hard time writing about me, but the things that they want me to write about, like my son, he goes, Dad, do you remember the things you taught us in football? I go, yeah, I kind of. Because what do you mean? I said, because when I was coaching you, I didn't stop to think, what am I going to say to the boys today? Right? When I'm working with you, and this is the assignment. And then when we get together, sometimes we don't even touch that because I know there is something else that we need to deal with in this moment. So I connect. And
You're being more the conduit.
and it just flows out. So when people go, what did you say? I go, if you really want to know something I said, you better either record it or make notes. Because you asking me afterwards, I won't know what I'm saying.
You're going to remember. We always remember how we left feeling.
And to me, that's the most important. What will you remember? You'll remember things that I've said. But you'll also remember, more importantly, how it made you feel. How what I did, you chose to react or respond to it. Because no one can make me feel anything. I'll just react or respond to what stimuli you're giving to me. Just like no one can make you love anything. So I find it hard for me to sit down and write these things out. So I've been pushing back at this knucklehead here. We'll do a collaboration because he's really good. No, I'm talking to the Superman statue behind you, not you.
I thought so.
That
This little guy?
Yeah. Why so serious? But so I think it will happen probably from a collaborative standpoint where he interviews and writes. We'll see if it's meant to be. I don't know. Like I said, I accept it can be part of my worthiness issues. I have no shame.
Oh, that's good. Because it is. Don't tell Rawle though.
Well, if I didn't have any issues, I might be dead.
All right, fine.
Okay.
You can keep your issues then.
We're at that point.
What is that point? Well,
Wanna get rid of me now?
what you picked out today.
Yeah. Well, I hope whoever's listening enjoyed this. Maybe we should do this more on a regular basis. Just have an open chat.
Just free throw. Just a little free. And maybe if we're going to say, hey, we're not going to have a theme, I could post this stuff maybe an hour before the show.
Well, we have our production meeting coming.
It's crazy thought.
We're always looking for ways to improve this. I mean, but don't get me wrong. I get a lot of people, make it sound like millions of people every day reaching out going, hey, great show. But getting enough feedback from people, and particularly when we post the videos, at least every week I'm seeing 2 or 3 people that I've never seen before like it and stuff. Even on Twitter, I don't get a lot of traction on Twitter because I don't tweet a lot. Well, I've been twittering more than lately, but yeah. So so we are rippling out.
We are definitely rippling.
Time is my constant.
We're all technically time travelers.
Time is our constant companion because we're always fighting against it or wishing for more or wishing it away.
Well, I guess as long as we have the time, but Today, we definitely don't. I know. All right, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us today. As always, I'm Gene. That's Rawle. And we will see you all next week.
Oh, one last thing. It's the legal language. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals.